Okay, so we have the sphere on the plane and the script is there getting the player to move. So now we're going to start adding pickup objects. So you can go through the piece inside of the tutorial to do pickup objects. I'm just going to quickly get my pickup object going by going to my hierarchy, creating a 3D cube. It's already at 0.5. I'm going to change its size like they did. I'm going to tell my player to become deactivated so I can see it a little bit better. I'm going to rotate my cube 45, 45, 45. Oh, but that was the player. Let me have the cube going. Probably makes more sense if I hit tab instead of caps lock. There we are. So I have my cube at an interesting angle. And I'm going to go and add a new script component. And they asked me to name this thing as rotator. And rotator. Create and add. Okay, so the script object named rotator, where did rotator go? I tried to add it. There it is. Okay. If I come over to my project, I'm in my scripts folder. Rotator's not there because when I created the script, it gets added to the top of the assets. So I'll move that into scripts just to be a little bit neat. I'm going to Alt-Tab over to Visual Studio, and it does a quick update, and I can see that rotator now appears here inside of scripts. So here I am, and remember the name of rotator.cs. The actual file has to match the name of the class that we're creating, rotator, here. And I'm going to get rid of the start method because this doesn't need the start method. It just needs to do something every time the frame updates. Now, this is one of the places where the movie was old. They used to use a different code editor. They used an editor called MonoDevelop, and the shortcut that they mentioned in the video doesn't work in Visual Studio. So they tell you to type transform. And then you can see we get all of these shortcuts to things that might be useful with transform. And they said to use controller command quote. And oh my word, they fixed it. At least on the Mac they did. I did not expect that to work. If I go and look at my help menu, look at that. The Unity API reference has a shortcut of command quote on the Macintosh. I don't know if they fixed it on Windows. If you go under Help, Unity API reference on Windows, it's something obscure like Control-Alt-H, Control-M, or something like that. It's really a two-key sequence. So whatever you need to do would be to go up to your Help menu, pull down, and go over to the Unity API menu. But that shortcut key is one that you should try to remember, because if you have something, like if I'm on update, for instance, and if I shortcut key, it's going to jump out to the Unity API. You searched for D. Oh, you know what? I had the letter D highlighted, but if my cursor is over update, and then I do a shortcut, now it's going to say, oh, well, this is what update, and we have updates in a bunch of different locations. But we would be looking for update for the native player loop. So, coming back over here, transform, shortcut, And it just keeps opening up new tabs. I'm going to close some of these other tabs because it's getting busy up here. So, transform, position, rotation, and scale of an object, and it gives us information about that, which is great. So, we don't need to go into too much depth. Just know that when you are getting, you're not expected to know all of these. No person knows all of these. That's why we have this scripting API, or scripting application programming interface. Most tools like Visual Studio, which is an integrated development environment, or an IDE, will give you a link out to documentation to help you understand what's happening. So just roll with it for right now. Roll a ball, roll with it. But just go with it for right now, and just know that you're not going to know all of these things. And there's hundreds, probably thousands of objects that you're not going to need to know about until much, much later in your career. And when you need them, you'll find them inside of the scripting API. And part of getting effective with Unity is knowing what you have to write versus knowing what has already been given to you and how to use it. We don't have to do much in order to get this cube to rotate, because so much stuff has already been given to us and we just have to manipulate it. Okay, so I've popped back in here into Visual Studio, and I have my transform.rotate, but I just want to show you what happens when I begin typing a parenthesis. It's going to put in a close parenthesis for me, and it's going to show me that there are 6 different variants on rotate. And so this is also coming from the API. So when the video popped out and said there's these different options, we're going to use the one that uses the new vector 3, that uses a vector 3. And so what we're going to do is, in order to create a vector 3, I'm just going to make that vector 3 right here, vector 3, and I forget what the values were, so I'm just going to go like 45, 30, 15. It was something like that. So rotate 45 degrees in the X, 30 degrees around the Y, 15 degrees around the Z. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to take that and multiply it by time delta time. Now, and then I have to end with a semicolon. I'm going to save this. Whoops, vectors. That's an error. It's giving me a little squiggle. It should be vector 3. And now it turns cyan, and the squiggle goes away, and it's happier. When I jump over to Unity, I can look at my cube. I can test it. The script is there. On every update, it's going to start doing this slow tumble. Now, I'm going to do something very quickly here. I'm just going to take out multiplying by time delta time. So I'm just going to say on every update, rotate. Now, by doing that, we're going to see what time delta time does. If I hit play, my computer can't even keep up with what's going on. If I look at my stats, my graphics are running at 217 frames per second, 300 frames per second. That's just crazy. Now, it's not being asked to do much, which is why it's able to do this. But that's every time, that's how many updates are happening every second. We're only seeing a portion of those being represented because our eyes can't possibly keep up with it. What we want to do is we want to say, we want this to rotate 45 degrees in the X in 1 second. We want this to rotate 30 degrees in the Y in 1 second. We want this to rotate 15 degrees in the Z in 1 second. The way we do that is we use the fact that the engine knows what fraction of a second has passed since the last time the update was run. And that we ask our time object to look for delta time. Delta time, how many small fractions of a second have passed since the last frame. So time delta time, we will often use as a multiplier. Wow, this sample code unfortunately is more complex than I needed to show you right now. So I'm just going to move back away from this. That's the nice thing about the API. There might be things in there, it's like, oh wait, this is too deep. You don't have to dive into it and know it all. Just know that right now, you know what, I have an easier way to show you this. I'm going to come back over here into my script, and on every update, before we do the transform, I'm going to go debug.log. I'm going to put it in quotes, time elapsed, colon, plus time.delta time. Okay, I'm going to save this. I'm going to come back over into Unity, and we're going to see this inside of the console window. So I'm just going to hit play, and then stop that, come over to console, and give me just a moment. I want to see if I can make this thing zoom. So right here, well, look at that. That's kind of nifty. Here inside of the console, on one update it was 2/100ths of a second, then it was 0.3333 100ths of a second, then it was 0.03. So this was almost 1/3 of a second, where here it was 3 1/3 100ths of a second. And so every update, it's a slightly different fraction of a second. Now, I did not expect that to continue to zoom. That's nifty. There we go. Now, because that is a small number, it's saying, well, I don't want to rotate 30 degrees this frame. I want to take 30 degrees times 0.02 and rotate just that little bit. And then on the next update, I'm going to take 30 degrees times 0.33 and rotate that little bit. And that allows the cube to spin at a perceptible speed to us, and it also allows us to know exactly how far it's moving in 1 second. So time delta time, definitely your friend. Okay, I'm going to stop this video here, and hopefully that gets you across some of the scripts. Let me go back to the script one more time, and that is it in its entirety. Public class rotator, which is a mono behavior, and then void update. I'm going to take out my additional code because that's not necessary. Transform.rotate, make a new vector 3, 45, 30, 15 for x, y, and z, and then multiply that vector 3 by the value of time.delta time. Nice stuff. See you in the next video.